The world of work is undergoing dramatic changes before our eyes. Paul Dupuis, MD and CEO, Randstad India, author The E5 Moment, will share his insights on leadership muscles and the new work world.
Greetings. My name is Paul Dupuis, and I'm the MD and CEO of Randstad India. It's a real pleasure to be here today to speak to you at this important event about the future of work and the future of the workplace. We're really talking about transformation. And today I'd like to focus on leadership muscles, some of the things we discovered, particularly over the past year, and how they will take us into the new world of work. So let's get right into it. First, it's important to understand that there's a key difference between the competent manager and the game-changing leader. The competent manager, these are the people who follow the processes, who deliver on the expectations. The game-changing leader, on the other hand, are those that create the future. So while the competent manager plays the game well, the game-changing leader changes the game. And this is really what we need now from leaders, particularly in this world of disruption, and I would say especially over the past year, as our world has essentially been turned upside down. So it's about changing the game. And how do you do that? Well, that comes back to the muscles I talked about earlier. Leadership, in my mind, is really about a series of muscles. You know, there's an interesting quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger. He said that you don't get in shape, you don't put on muscle simply by walking in the gym. You have to walk in the gym and put in the work. To become a truly transformational leader, a game-changing leader, a leader who is future ready, you need to put in the work. And that's one of the realizations I've made as a leader over the past year. The key is to work on the right muscles. So let's talk about the types of leadership. First, we all know about tactical leadership. And certainly those of us as leaders who have started on the ground, who have worked our way up from the front line to become leaders and senior leaders, have that kind of deep in our DNA. We look at the world from the viewpoint of the player, the doer. That's tactical leadership. It's very important for a leader to be in touch with the people on the ground. Let's call it being in the mud, to take a pulse check of how the people are doing and to understand the challenges they face firsthand. Then, of course, there's strategic leadership. We talk about strategic leadership. It's often referred to as going to 30,000 feet. And I would argue that 30,000 feet is way too high, especially if the leader goes there alone. Because the further you are away from the ground, the further out of touch you are as well as a leader. And that's so important right now, to be in touch, particularly as we move forward and navigate through ambiguity and adversity. So strategic leadership for me is going up to, let's say, 100 feet and not going alone, bringing your team with you. In the case of an organization, certainly in the case of Randstad, I would bring my senior leadership team with me. We would co-create that strategy. That's strategic leadership. So tactical leadership is about being on the ground, in the mud. Strategic leadership is about taking your leadership team, going up to a high level to see the landscape, to look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats, of course, and to carve out a path for the future. And that's really what the North Star, the purpose, is all about. And we do know that game-changing leadership, and particularly about future-ready leadership, is about having a vision for the future. And speaking of vision, visionary leadership. Now, none of us as leaders have a crystal ball. I can tell you with confidence that as I was preparing my strategy with my leadership team, when we went to the heights and we carved out our strategy for Randstad in India and globally, no one could have predicted back in, say, 2019, when we had our leadership team offsite to plan for 2020, no one could have predicted that a global pandemic would strike. And if you rewind back, most companies starting in 2015, 16, created grand visions of 2020. So we all had an idea of what 2020 would look like for our organizations. And a lot of smart people who created strategies around the world. Nobody, I've never met a leader who predicted that in 2020, we would experience such an unprecedented crisis. So visionary leadership is not about predicting the future. It's not about a crystal ball, but it's about peeking around the corner. And how do we do that? Well, we start by looking at the past. We learn from the past in order to anticipate the future. And that's where future readiness comes from. And the visionary leaders that I've observed and studied and written about have that ability based on the journey that they've been on as leaders to peek around the corner, to not predict the future, but to anticipate, but most importantly, to be future ready. Now, when we combine tactical and strategic leadership, it's an important combination of muscles. Of course, it leads to visionary leadership, but the tactical leader is in touch with the people. So important now, as we've all learned as leaders, to have a pulse check, to really understand how people are feeling. We talk about empathy and compassion and so on, but really what it's about is being in the moment, being in touch, caring. Strategic is about climbing up the mountain or up the ladder to take a view of the opportunities, going back down to the team and coming up with a plan, and then executing together. That combination of tactical and strategic is so important right now for every leader. Gone are the days where the leader sits in a closed room and creates strategy. It's about being out with the team, whether it's physically face-to-face or virtually. There's one more type of leadership I'd like to introduce, which I think is very relevant as we look ahead to the future. That's something called reflexive leadership. And it's kind of a new thing that I've discovered and I'm starting to think about. As an athlete myself, I can relate to this photo. We all know the speed at which the cricket ball comes as the bowler whips it towards the batsman. That split second, and it's less than a second as we know, where the batsman has to make a decision on how to attack that ball or not, is so critical to success. Well, it's the same thing for leaders. And where does the reflex come from? It's very interesting. There are studies have been done. For example, if you were to have a young child standing in front of you, and if you took a pen and you softly lobbed that pen to the young child would probably try to grab it. Yeah. If you were then to take a dangerous object like a rock or even a knife, the young child would also try to grab it. It's very interesting. If you were to do the same experiment with an adult, lob the pen, they would try to catch it. Lob the knife, they would dodge it instinctively. So where does that come from? Well, that comes from life experience. And leaders are no different. As we move forward on our journey, as we navigate through bumps in the road, as we have successes and challenges, we fall down, we get back up, we actually build leadership reflexes. And I encourage leaders to think about that, think about the reflexes that you've all built and question them sometimes, because sometimes maybe it's not the right decision to reach out and catch the pen. And so this is a very interesting element of leadership. It's a muscle that I think we all need to consider and start building if we really want to be future ready, and particularly important in this new world we're moving into. Now, I've had the opportunity to lead around the world. I'm here now in incredible India now for 4 years. I was in Japan, in and out of Japan for about 25 years. I lived in Singapore. I've worked in most countries across the APAC region. And working for a global company, I'm also heavily involved in global initiatives around the world, in Europe, North America, and beyond. And one thing I've discovered over my journey as I cross borders and lead in different arenas, whether it's business, sports, the volunteer world, and so on, is that effective leadership is actually universal. In fact, it's borderless, it's timeless. So I'm often asked, what's the difference between leading, for example, in Japan and India, Singapore and China, the Netherlands and Canada, for example? Well, actually, what I've discovered is there are more similarities when it comes to truly game-changing leadership. And we talk about future readiness. There is absolutely a formula and commonality. And I want to talk about that because I wrote a book about this topic. And I talk a lot in the book, The Rule of Five, about the future ready leader, the future of work, the future of the workplace. It always begins with a leader who is walking the talk. And I came up with 5 E's based on my observations, my studies of leaders who have gone before us, studying history, again, across genres, whether it's the arts, politics, business, science, sports, and beyond. And then, of course, our modern day leaders as well. We learn from those who have gone before us. Isaac Newton said it best, stand on the shoulders of giants, we can see further. So I'd like to briefly introduce the concept of the E5 and how it connects with being future ready and the future of work and the future of the workplace. The first E is envision. I talked earlier about visionary leadership. Well, the game-changing leaders, the leaders who have really led and thrived through this crisis over the past year are the leaders who stuck to a very compelling purpose, the greater why. And that's what Envision is all about. It's creating a vision which touches the hearts and the minds. It's less about the what, it's more about the why. We know that having a powerful purpose will get us through any storm, and leaders who live and breathe that purpose will lead teams through any storm. So important right now to have a compelling purpose in vision. The second E is express. Once that vision is created and co-created with the team, then it's important to open the door and take it to the world, in this case to the organization. Now, there are lots of ways to do that. Again, our world has changed. In pre-COVID days, I would jump on a plane, I would travel around to our locations around India or around the world, and I would stand in front of my teams and I would express the vision face to face. Well, when we talk about the ways to express now, we need to embrace omni-channel. The future of work is all about omni-channel. It's about connecting with people in different ways and different mediums. And of course, social media is a wonderful way to do it, but everything from town halls, using technology like we're using today, of course, emails, brief video clips, and so on. There's lots of ways to connect with people in creative ways, but it takes work. Back to my comment about the muscle. Express requires work, requires help. And I'll tell you what, I go to my marketing team when I need help with this one, because it's so important. While the leader may have a compelling vision, if it's not expressed in a way that's digestible, then it will not come to life. In the new world, we need to be creative on how we express our vision to our teams. And then of course, when we get that second E right, when we express it in a way that is digestible, that touches the buttons, the motivations of our people, it leads to excitement. Excite is a key turning point, because we all know that in order to create a movement, to really get the wheels moving, you need people leaning in, you need people wanting to be part of it, raising their hand, volunteering, coming up with ideas. So the excite moment of truth is critical in order to bring that vision to life. And this leads to the fourth E, leader as enabler. And I'll tell you, in my own journey as a leader, that's where I am right now. I am in the stage of being a leader as an enabler. In other words, the leader who provides the arena, the platform, the opportunity for the team to shine. And so the game-changing leaders, the exceptional leaders, the leaders who are future-focused are heavily focusing on this muscle, the ability to help others to shine, to create a place where they can shine, to give them the tools and the support. So it's not all about technology. Technology is certainly part of the story, but it's really about providing an atmosphere, an environment where people are pushed and pulled, but supported all the way through. There's something called freedom in the frame. It comes from a book by Dan Cable, where he talks about giving people the room to move. Give them a frame, give them room to move. And this is where leaders sometimes need to actually get out of the way. So I talked a bit about tactical leadership. Well, the leader who came from the front line sometimes has a hard time with being leader as enabler, because, and I would include myself in that story, we grew up doing it, always doing, picking up the hammer. In this case, we actually need to enable, we need to show how, but then step out of the way and let the team experiment, let them learn as they do. So the enabling phase is really important. And again, it's a muscle that many of us as leaders have not focused on. If we talk about the future of work, the new world of work, the leader as enabler will be a critical piece of the full story if we talk about the muscles of effective leadership, really focusing on enabling people to shine. The final E, and this is the ultimate measurement of success of the leader, before COVID, during COVID, and well after COVID. I think until the end of time, that leadership is ultimately measured by executing on the vision, bringing the vision to life. Okay? So back to the compelling purpose. The purpose is, of course, always about the why, and it's about impact, and there must be measurable impact. Certainly all leaders are ultimately measured by the output and the impact, but the output and the impact is a result of having a compelling vision with people that are living and breathing it, that are excited about it, that are being the best versions of themselves. They're enabled every day to shine. Then ultimately, the outcomes will emerge. When we take these 5 E's and put it together, I think it's a formula for leaders to navigate into the new world, into the future of work and the future workplace. It's important to note that transformation and leading into the future does not happen overnight. You know, if you look at what happened in the past year, and certainly before COVID, we were talking about the pace of change in the world. The world was changing so fast. Well, we certainly had that notion turned upside down over the past year. So digital transformation, for example, our world has gone completely digital in a way, thanks to COVID. Crisis brings opportunity. At the same time, we also realize that this is not a sprint. Many of us, and I'm sure many who are watching today would agree with me, that we all defaulted to being very, very busy when we moved into the virtual world of work. We packed our schedules from morning till night. I know I did it. And then I realized that this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's important to stay focused on the true north and move forward together with the team, one step at a time. It's about incremental progress. So transformation is actually a gradual process. Leading into the future is about incremental progress. As long as we all stay focused on that true north, the North Star, the greater purpose, ultimately what we're aiming for, then we'll get there, but it's important to take it one step at a time. And ultimately, as I mentioned, they're focusing on the true north. You know, it's important that leaders talk about this often, especially when times are tough. Team needs to be reassured that we will get there. While the seas are choppy right now, we will get through this. It's a matter of time, because all crises do come to an end. We've seen that since the beginning of time in history, and the future-ready leader knows this, and this is where they deliver a very important message, crystal clear, that they will move forward with the team through good and bad. Now, the new world of work, here's what we already know. We're talking about hybrid. This word has come up a lot, but what does it really mean? Hybrid is a balance between face-to-face and virtual. We started with work from home, and that certainly has evolved now to work from remote, and now we're hearing about work from anywhere. The question is, what is the role of the office in this new world of work? I happen to be leading a global initiative for Randstad, which is all about rethinking the way we work, future-proofing the way we work. And one of the things we're focusing on right now is the office, the purpose of the office. Now, there are arguments out there that we don't need an office anymore, but I would counter that. I believe we do need offices, but I think the shape and the role of the office will change. In my mind, the role of the office in the new world of work is a place to collaborate and a place to celebrate. It's not necessarily a place to go to do work. This is a remarkable change, especially leaders from my generation who grew up in the world of presenteeism, where you reported to a desk and you performed a task and output was delivered or not. This is a whole new world. And for leaders, it's another new muscle we're going to have to build, leading in a hybrid world of work. Of course, digital will be at the center of everything we do. We communicate, we collaborate, and at least through COVID, we've been celebrating in a digital way, but nothing replaces that face-to-face connection and celebrating with a piece of cake and a round of applause, right? That moment cannot be replaced in a digital environment. So I go back to my comment about the role of the office, the new world of work. Certainly it will be about collaborating and celebrating, but the actual work can be done from anywhere. Relationships, however, are built and solidified face-to-face. So again, that's another role of the office. And so leaders need to rethink how to leverage the office as a tool to achieve the goals. In other words, to bring that vision to life. And that's a new type of leadership that all of us are going to have to learn how to do. So future ready? Well, it's really a combination of tech and touch. Now, a lot of the organizations that are getting it right that I see and that I support here in my own role at Randstad are embracing tech not simply to replace the important tasks, but they're using tech to enable better touch. For example, a chat bot cannot console someone who's feeling down. Technology, getting on a virtual meeting, for example, video conference, is not the way to truly celebrate an achievement with someone to make them feel good. And so we know that technology can only go so far, and we shouldn't over-rely on technology. So it's so important that we also include that element of touch. And I call it tech for touch, not tech and touch, but tech for touch. Use technology, leverage technology to give better touch. That's, of course, leading our organizations, leading our people, but it's also about our customers, how we connect with our customers. So important not to over-rely on tech. Tech does not replace touch. And I absolutely believe moving forward in the new world of work, that touch will become more and more important. We've already discovered the importance of empathy and compassion. And certainly in India, if I look at the 38 countries where we operate in Randstad, India has taken the lead within Randstad in terms of doing things around engagement, connecting with people on a deeper level, and showing true care, compassion. And of course, Tech for touch also requires agility. We need to embrace the technology, the right technology that allows us to connect, to bring our vision to life. So compassion and agility, also two important muscles. And I must say, many of us as leaders probably focus a lot on agility over the years, but not too much on compassion. It's an important muscle to lead into the future. So finally, just a quote from my book, The Rule of Five. I absolutely believe that exceptional leadership requires exceptional behavior. Leadership is all about behavior. It starts with the leader walking the talk. It's okay not to know what's ahead, and the leader can certainly admit that. I think the leader is human, particularly right now, particularly as we navigate into this new world, is so important, but also repeating the message that we will get there. We'll get there together. And we have a true north, a compelling vision, which will make a positive impact on the world, and that the only way we're going to do it is if we move forward together. So I'll pause here. I would encourage questions, of course, in the chat box, and I look forward to answering your questions. And I thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Dupuis, for a wonderful session. Stay tuned.